So welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins. And today I'm joined not by Jo, but by Iain. So welcome, Iain.
Thank you, Zoe.
So Iain's joining us today to chat to me and to all of you about his journey into coaching as part of our interview series of our clients who have trained with us, worked with us, or become coaches and are part of our business lounge. And Iain is both in our business lounge and has trained with us as a coach. So Iain, why don't you share with us a little bit just about who you are and what brings you here today?
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. So hi, everyone. I'm Iain Holloway McLean. I'm recently new to the coaching environment, but I say that with an element of caution because I do believe that I've been coaching for most of my career, but just not maybe in a more professional manner. I started my career as a nurse, and I specialized in HIV and palliative care. And that very much spoke to my core values and drivers, very much looking at the nurturing side, helping others, and that trust element. After my nursing career of around, I think it was just over 10 years, I then went over and transitioned in the pharmaceutical industry, which was a natural progression. And within that, I've led and engaged global teams throughout my career. And that was something that was always, I think, important in recognizing my technical capabilities, but also that team functionality of really engaging with individuals. And now, as we now embark on the third chapter of my career, I've just started up my own company, IHM Coaching. And now looking to embark on a new journey of really focusing my talents, my expertise in engaging with individuals and helping them, maybe take some similar pathways that I've taken.
Awesome. I never knew you started your career as a nurse, Iain.
Yes.
That maybe that was a little secret we didn't get to discover on the coaching training. It's always funny, isn't it, where in fact, I was just chatting to Emma, which is another podcast which we'll release as part of this series. And she was a teacher and then became a blogger and then became a coach. And the thread is always there. I think you mentioned it as like caring and nurturing. With Emma's, we talked about that kind of listening and, nurturing side as well. So there is definitely a thread, I think, when we see coaches of those I get suggestions and snippets in the previous career that kind of leads up to this coaching world.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you come to discover coaching then? So you've mentioned you feel like you've been doing it your whole career. So what was the point in which you stumbled upon coaching and thought, oh, that looks interesting?
It was I suppose a slow burn and then suddenly an explosion. Yeah, I think throughout both my careers in both nursing and in the pharmaceutical industry, when you're leading teams, as I've mentioned before, you are very much needing to adopt that coaching style to truly recognize the capabilities of the individuals within your teams. And as a nurse, I was leading 2 wards at one point, and I've had global teams in the pharmaceutical industry. And you really need to understand the capabilities irrespective of the role or hierarchy, because everyone's got a part to play. And that was the bit that I enjoyed the most in my job. It wasn't so much the science, it was everything else, but it was really the interactions with individuals, getting to understand what made them tick, what were their drivers, what were their values, how did that then match up with the other individuals in the team. And actually, I feel I was quite successful, certainly in my pharmaceutical days, of creating very high-performing teams because I looked at the individuals, I looked at their capabilities, I looked at what they aspired to. And that sometimes meant that I ended up coaching some of my team members. And, if truth be known, I even coached a few out of their roles, and they went off to do bigger and better things outside of the company. And I think it's always important as a leader that you do understand the people around you, you do understand the individual elements, and you do always strive to get the best for that other person. Now, that led me, I think, to coaching. I suppose some of it was mentoring, where I was imparting a lot of my knowledge to my team. But the times I felt most fulfilled was actually when the individual in front of you, that team colleague, suddenly had that spark or that realization of something, you know, that eureka moment. And you just think, wow, I was part of that. I helped facilitate that thought process that then led to their decision. And I think that's the bit that I love most about coaching rather than the mentoring side. It really is taking the cliches aside. It's untapping that potential. It is really understanding how that person could maybe move from one place to another by themselves. Yes, of course, there will be people around them that will help facilitate that. And there may be elements that they need to do, whether it be training courses or whatever, but it is something that they have control over. And I think that's the bit that really ignites my passion. And interestingly, it was something that was lacking, I think, towards the end of my career in pharmaceutical industry. I got quite high up in the organization. I was a senior director. And whilst I still had teams, the opportunity and the breadth and scope of that interaction with individuals was far less, because there were people, frankly, within my team who were doing that for me. And I really missed it. And it wasn't until, you know, a few years ago when actually the company was going through quite a significant change and that was impacting my team, that I realized how much I had missed that interaction. Because of the changes in the company, I was therefore taking accountability and I was engaging with my team far more than I had been. And I really loved it. Despite the content, despite the subject matter was all negative, the fact that I was then interacting with these individuals across the world, it really brought that passion back. And I then also had the opportunity to maybe make some life choices in my career. And then quite bizarrely, an old school friend, Sally, basically put out something either on LinkedIn or on Facebook. I can't remember what it was. I hadn't seen her, heard from her for 40 odd years or 30 odd years. And yeah, she said that she'd just done some training with you guys. And I went, oh, wow. Okay, let's look into it. And I think, you know, within say 7 to 14 days, I'd had a quick chat with Sally. I think I'd given you a call, Zoe.
Yeah.
We'd had a quick chat and yep, I was signed up.
Yeah.
And now we're on the next journey.
Yeah, it's so amazing to hear that in full, Iain, because I know you've had a senior leadership background and enjoyed the team leadership, but hearing the whole story is great. And it sounds like you've been, an exceptional leader. And I think it's hard to lead in that way of really understanding and knowing those individuals and having the space to let people leave if that's right for them. I think is a great quality as a leader. So brilliant that it brought you to the coaching space. So share with us what it was like then, coming from pharmaceutical leadership, into a cohort of mixed, some leaders, some HR, some business owners, lots of different people from all walks of life come through our program. So how was it for you?
Really daunting, really quite scary. I think again, it was such a transition. I was moving into a world that was predominantly, I think, connected to HR individuals. I don't have an HR background. It was taking myself back to learning. I actually had never done a degree. I'd literally worked my way up through all of my jobs. So going back to education and learning was a real daunting prospect as well. And a lot of self-doubt and vulnerability starts to come through. You self-sabotaging, you've self-limiting beliefs and all of those things were high up on my agenda. But actually, as time went on, one thing that I think surprised me, and I don't know whether it should have done or not, but coming from a corporate world into the coaching environment, the first thing that impacted me was the level of trust and sharing that was there across the cohort. There didn't seem to be that competitiveness that I had experienced in corporate life. There was far more a sharing, far more of, yes, oh, I've done that, let me help you. Or, oh, I've tried that and that didn't work for me, but why don't you try this? There was so much, I suppose, love in the room that really started to speak again to my values. about this is okay. I now feel that I'm coming home again. I'm starting to feel far more confident in myself. And it was a realization that, yeah, okay, I need to learn, but this is it for me. And on that learning side, actually, it was, like I say, daunting, but doing the assignment, thinking of, how on earth am I going to start the first words on the page? I ended up probably writing too much, having to cut it down, but really enjoyed it. Really started to stimulate parts of my brain that maybe hadn't been stimulated for a long period of time. And I think as an adult learner, you get so much more from it. And that's been great.
It's really interesting you say that, actually, because we have people coming through the programs that have been academic, that have done various degrees, and this is part of their continued development. We have a lot of people like you, Iain, who perhaps haven't done the academic either for a very long time or never.
Yeah.
And that whole process of learning actually helps to bust some myths that you might have dropped out of school with or left school with around not being able to, or not being good enough to, or whatever the things that we carry in our mind. And the story you sort of shared there is quite a common one that we hear around, actually, I'm actually quite good at this. Maybe your 14, 16-year-old self just wasn't that switched on, but now that I'm an adult, I'm good to go with this. And it's quite liberating, I think, to be able to step into that adult learning space, often also with the support that you need at that time in your life, because your history may be that people haven't had the support that was right for them at that time. But the learning program, learning as an adult, is just an entirely different experience.
It is. It's a far more personal experience. And I think actually the coaching side has also been a really personal element. It's time where I've been able to focus on something for myself, rather selfishly, in inverted commas, but really quite rewarding. And, the one thing I would always encourage anybody is, although it might feel selfish, it's not. It's had such an impact on other aspects of my life, on my family. I'm becoming much more self-aware. I'm aware of others. And that doesn't mean I'm coaching my wife and my children and everything else, God forbid. But it does mean that I've got a far better understanding of what they're going through. And being able just to stop and listen is something that I've really learned. And I think that's a key element is the coaching part, is the exploration through listening for me. And it's had a really positive impact on all elements of my life.
Yeah, again, something else we hear a lot of. Obviously, we talk about the coaching program as you're coming and you're learning the skills to coach and you're learning the skills to help others. But of course, you can't do that without the byproduct of helping yourself at the same time. And I really liked what you said around that coming home sensation and about the support. And I actually find that to be true of the coaching industry at large. So obviously in the coaching crowd, we've got something like currently, I think 2,000 plus members. And there's that same feel in that mass community as there are on the smaller programs. I find people are always willing to help, to listen, to learn, to hop on calls with each other. It is, it's far beyond that competitiveness and that need to prove that sometimes you come across, in that corporate world. So how are you using it now, Iain? So you've gone through the process of learning to be a coach. I know you've got some coaching hours to ramp up. What are you going to do with it? Like, what's your plan?
My plan is to really focus on creating my own business for coaching individuals primarily, potentially including some of that within a corporate setting, utilizing my experiences that I've already got, because I think it would be a waste almost not to utilize those years of experience. But it's very much starting to look at individuals within companies, within small businesses, to see how we can explore their own journey, how we can start to reimagine their future in that respect, I've had a couple of conversations with a few individuals who have now signed up for some coaching experience with me. And, there's one individual who was saying to me one evening, they just wanted to focus on a different element of their career and life. But I think, as with all of us, our careers just take us down a pathway, which we're quite happy to follow. But suddenly you wake up one morning and you realize that you're 20 miles off course from where you wanted to be originally. And what I'd like to do is to start to explore, okay, there's no magic wand. We've all got to pay the mortgage. We've all got to earn a living. But how can we then maybe explore either getting them back onto that journey pathway, or what elements of that previous aspiration can we replicate in their current world? Because I think, again, sometimes we become blinkered. We don't quite see how we can still utilize our skills, whatever they may be, in our day-to-day working setting. And I think if I can help someone explore that and enable them to both have a gradual transition, or potentially quite a massive change of life transition where they suddenly say, no, that's it, absolutely, we're going to move and we're going to go over to something else. But that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the remainder of my career. And it's something that I think is really going to give me energy, and it's certainly reignited my passion for people. And again, it's where I can make a difference. I think there is a lot of work that can be done within the corporate setting to re-energize teams. I think actually COVID, despite all of its appalling consequences, has had a slight benefit in actually bringing people together, making people realize the importance of connectivity. And some people have had the opportunity to work from home and have felt quite isolated. Some people haven't had that opportunity to be in very stressful environments. But I think what it has done is uncovered maybe some of the veneer that was covering all of our careers and all of our perceptions. So now is a great time to start exploring, okay, let's take you back to your values, your beliefs. What was it that really you started on your first journey, and where are you today? And then can we match that up somehow? That's my plan.
It's such important work, and the world has changed, doesn't it? I think the pandemic has just almost, tipped the cart over and you get to kind of redesign it as you are. And the world of work is different. I think people's outlook on work is different. I think we come to work with a much broader sense of what's important to us. If I just take my family, for instance, I think before COVID, I was doing the majority of the school pickups and drop-offs, and my husband was doing his career, and that was just how it was. Like, it didn't design it that way. It was just we sort of fell into those roles. There was a point when my husband left the military and said, would you like me to do the childcare? I thought about it for a little while, but I was like, no, it's all right, actually. But COVID changed everything. We both work flexibly. We both have a role in the family. My husband realizes how important that is to him, and building that into his career. And he's managed to transition into a different career during COVID, which is much more aligned to his passion, but still with the flexibility. So I think that piece around, yes, knowing your own needs, your own values, your beliefs, and also working with organizations to facilitate, being able to make things like that happen. There's a lot of work out there that can be done. Yeah,
there is.
So what would you say, Iain, is like your biggest takeaway from this whole experience of finding coaching, training in coaching, setting up your business? What's your kind of biggest takeaway?
I think my biggest takeaway is stop sleepwalking.
What a nice phrase.
I've realized, however much I enjoyed my career, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved my career, both in industry and in nursing. But you do find that you end up sleepwalking through life and you miss the opportunities. You don't look around you. I actually spend so much more time now when I'm walking down the street looking around me and seeing things and hearing things and using my senses that potentially I'd never used for the last 40 odd years. And so I think it is that almost awakening element of recognizing actually what your full potential is, having some belief inside yourself that you actually have control over your own journey, irrespective of mortgage payments, irrespective of what your job is and everything else. I do appreciate that there are confines to everybody's lives, but we can start to break out of that. And I think through coaching, it's something that, you know, let's put it on the NHS almost. It's something that will enable, you know, people to both look at their careers, but also their mental well-being, to understand themselves. You know, a number of people on the coaching course have done that, and they're not going to change their careers. They may not become fully, you know, full-time coaches, but they're still utilizing those skills to better enhance the role that they've got today. And that's making them a better person. It's making their role that they perform a much more productive role. And that's then having a positive impact on the company they work for. So, you know, I would really encourage anybody who's, you know, considering any type of evaluation of their life to do it on a more regular basis. First of all, don't just sleepwalk through 10 years and go, oh, good, how did I get here? But then, you know, explore, you know, see whether there's coaching around you. It doesn't have to be, you know, fully, you know, expensive type of things. That there are all opportunities out there for everyone to gain insights into themselves. You know, and I think it's important that we do start now to be far more reflective on ourselves and on our environment, so we can start to be, I don't know, better people, but also a better society. And I think if you're happy doing what you do, then you're going to have a smile. And I can guarantee if you're walking down the street and you smile at someone, yep, they may think you're a little bit crazy, but they are going to go off feeling far more happier. Yeah. You know, those endorphins and everything else in, you know, from emotions are going to come through, and it has a knock-on effect.
Yeah, I think you've summed coaching up beautifully there, Iain. So if people are listening to this and they want to find you, where can they come and find you and connect with you?
So the best place to find me at the moment is on LinkedIn. It's Iain Holloway McLean. Yeah, please feel free to connect up with me. I am starting my company. It's a fledgling company. It only started in June, the beginning of this month. So, you know, getting a website up and running as well. But yes, if anyone would like to have a chat with me, more than happy just to have, you know, a half-hour chat, virtual coffee. If otherwise we can try and meet up if we're local. But yeah, I think it's important that we just start to connect up. And if there's anything that I can do or answer anyone's questions, then I'd be happy to do that.
Oh, you're starting. That must come with a warning. You might live to regret that. We did this YouTube video once when we didn't have many listeners, and Jo said, "Oh, if you want this resource, like email us." And she gave us the email address, and it got to a point where we got flooded with emails. So let's connect with Iain on LinkedIn, and if we've got a boost in listeners, Iain may not have the time to speak to you, but you never know. Always worth a try.
Absolutely.
Oh, thanks so much, Iain. And if you're listening to this and like Iain, you want to wake up and stop sleepwalking and feel like coaching might be your thing, then good place to start would be to head over to mycoachingcourse.com, which is a quiz that we have, which will help you to decide which coaching course is right for you. And of course, you can get in touch with Jo and I, and we will get back to you. We're not too busy for that just yet. Brilliant. Thanks very much, Iain.
Thanks a lot.